What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another absolute mind-bender of an explainer right here on Inner Drive. If you are new to the channel, do yourself a massive favor and smash that subscribe button right now, because today we are diving deep into a psychological concept that is literally going to rewire how you look at your own thoughts. No cap. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your brain is actively lying to you right at this very second. It is completely modern, just twisting reality to make you feel better. And the absolutely crazy thing is, that lie, that built-in deception, might actually be the single greatest evolutionary advantage you possess. But hold up, don't get too comfortable, because it is also a wildly dangerous trap that can ruin your life. We are unpacking the massive paradox of optimism today. How does lying to ourselves actually help us survive the daily grind and eventually thrive in life? Stick around, grab a coffee, because the hard science behind how we hack our own reality is going to be absolutely fascinating.
All right, to really understand this, we got to take a little time travel trip. Let's rewind the clock all the way back to the 1960s. Picture this. Stan Lee is just a regular guy grinding it out, trying to keep his job, trying to pay the rent. His boss storms into the office and basically demands a brand new superhero, and he wants it ASAP. So Stan goes back to his desk, brainstorms, and pitches this totally unhinged, wild idea. He proposes a teenage superhero, but not a flawless god. A kid with real-world anxiety, a kid stressing over rent money, getting bullied, and getting completely rejected by girls. You know, actual relatable human problems. He pitches Spider-Man. And the corporate suits in the boardroom, they literally looked at him dead in the eyes and dropped the quote you are looking at right now. That is the absolute worst thing I've ever heard. Zero hesitation, complete shutdown. They thought people found spiders totally disgusting, and the golden rule back then was that teenagers were strictly meant to be sidekicks, never the main event. They honestly thought Stan was losing his mind and speedrunning his own career destruction. But Stan? Bro, he had this crazy, unshakable belief. He had that ultimate, unbreakable main character energy.
So, looking at that story, I have to ask you a very serious, rhetorical question. When exactly does a delusion become a vision? Seriously, think about it for a second. Is there a fundamental biological difference in the brain between a crazy person and a genius visionary, or is it purely judged by the final outcome? Because Stan Lee took his supposedly delusional idea and decided to run a covert experiment. He tested it in a dying, canceled magazine called Amazing Fantasy. The project was basically completely dead in the water anyway, so the corporate spreadsheet guys completely stopped looking over his shoulder. He slapped Spider-Man on the cover of the final issue just to get the idea out of his system. And boom! A month later, the sales data drops and it is an absolute, undeniable cultural phenomenon. That exact same publisher who laughed in his face came sprinting down the hallway completely out of breath, screaming, "Stan, remember that incredible character we both loved?" The audacity of that corporate amnesia is wild, right? But it proves a fundamental point. True innovation requires temporarily believing in something completely unproven long before the world ever gives you any validation.
Let's actually get into the hard psychology of this phenomenon. Psychologists have a specific term for this, which is positive illusions. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. Holding on to these mildly unrealistic, slightly overly optimistic beliefs about your own abilities, your future outcomes, or how much control you have over chaotic situations. As human beings, we naturally overestimate the good stuff happening to us. We think, oh, I'm definitely going to crush that interview, start a massive company, and become the CEO by 30. And simultaneously, we completely underestimate the brutal risks. We tell ourselves, nah, I won't get sick. My immune system is just built different. Now, let's be super clear here. Clinically speaking, actual severe delusions are serious mental health conditions, and we absolutely do not romanticize that on this channel. But culturally, in our everyday grind, mild positive illusions are literally what keep us functioning and sane. Major research by psychologists Taylor and Brown shows that these slightly delusional self-evaluations actively promote wild, unstoppable resilience. When you face massive trauma or failure, if you have these illusions, you cope way, way better than a pure realist. You are literally hacking your own reality to stay motivated and avoid breaking down under pressure. It's exactly like installing a custom Optimism bias patch directly into your brain's operating system.
But we have to ask the deep question. Why did we evolve to be this way? Why is the human brain literally hardwired to trick its own owner? Well, evolutionary psychologists von Hippel and Trivers dropped a theory a while back that is literally mind-blowing. They call it the evolutionary arms race of deception. Okay, picture this whole scenario. Ancient humans survived by acquiring scarce resources, right? Food, shelter, status. And sometimes, to get those resources, you gotta lie to your tribe. You gotta bluff to survive the winter. But lying is physically and mentally exhausting. It creates a massive, heavy cognitive load on your brain. When you lie, you get nervous, your voice shakes, you sweat, you leave obvious physical tells, and over thousands of years, the people around you evolve to detect those lies to protect themselves. The survival scene, katracha, bro. It's like playing a massive, high-stakes game of Among Us, but in real life with actual survival on the line. So how do you beat the human lie detectors in your tribe? You deceive yourself first. If you actively, genuinely believe your own hype, you don't show any tells at all. Your heart rate stays calm. Self-deception literally evolved so we could deceive others more effectively and win the evolutionary game. That is an unbelievable absolute flex by Mother Nature, honestly. So let's zoom out, look at the big picture data and weigh the actual return on investment of having this built-in delusion. The benefits are honestly crazy good. On the positive side, you get insane emotional resilience and massive world-changing innovation, like we saw with Stan Lee. But get this, it even affects your biology. Extensive studies on self-rated health show that if you just actively feel positive about your baseline health, you can actually live up to 20 years longer. Let that sink in. 20 years. Just by maintaining optimistic vibes and believing you are robust, your brain literally boosts your physical immune system simply because it believes you are healthy. But then, we have to look at the dark side of the equation. The costs of this illusion are absolutely brutal. We are talking about ignoring crucial, life-saving medical advice because you genuinely think, nah, it won't happen to me. We are talking about stacking up massive, life-ruining gambling losses because your brain creates an illusion of control over a random roulette wheel. We're talking about crashing the entire global stock market because thousands of traders got way too greedy and overly optimistic all at once. It is a massive, high-stakes, double-edged sword. You can ride it straight to the moon, or you can fly right into the side of a mountain.
Part 1. The Toxic Positivity Trap. Let's get into the dark side.
Because as we all know, what goes up on fake hype must inevitably come crashing down into reality. We currently live in this crazy modern internet culture of perpetual euphoria. You open social media and everyone is just aggressively screaming good vibes only and just manifest it, bro. But listen to me. If you force yourself to be blindly optimistic when the cold, hard, objective facts say otherwise, you are not being a visionary, you are just totally, dangerously disconnected from reality. Let's break down the actual, real-world high costs when this optimism bias goes completely unchecked. First up, gambling and total financial ruin. When people overestimate their winning odds, they bet the house, and the house absolutely always wins. Second, catastrophic stock market miscalculations. Think about the 2008 global financial crash. That entire disaster was built almost entirely on pure, unchecked positive illusion, greed, and people believing real estate could never go down. Third, the insanely high failure rates in the startup world. Every single founder thinks their new SaaS app is going to be the next unicorn. The Small Business Administration data shows brutal, heartbreaking failure rates, but founders keep launching with extreme positive illusions. And fourth, ignoring preventive medicine. Yes, the healthcare system is complicated, but people actively dodge vital health screenings purely because they subconsciously refuse to accept that a negative reality could apply to them. This isn't just a minor oopsie. This is life-destroying stuff. Untethered, toxic optimism is an absolute menace to society if you don't keep it in check.
Part 2. The second wave. Existential positive psychology. This is where we find the cure. So the golden question is, how do we actually fix this bug in our brain software? How do we stay highly motivated and ambitious without completely losing touch with reality and falling into toxic positivity? For that, we have to look to the second wave of positive psychology. This acts as the vital missing bridge between fake, plastic positivity and gloomy, pessimistic despair. And you literally cannot talk about this movement without talking about the absolute legend himself, Viktor Frankl. He is widely recognized as the forefather of this entire psychological framework. Frankl survived the absolute worst atrocities of human history in the Holocaust, and his ultimate conclusion about the human mind was profound. He fundamentally believed that the single-minded, desperate pursuit of happiness, the way our modern culture chases it, actually backfires completely. If you chase happiness directly, it slips through your fingers. You lose it. Instead, he argued that happiness and positive emotions are just natural byproducts of living a certain way. True mental health and deep fulfillment come from having a clear, undeniable sense of meaning and purpose in your life. You have to look existential realities straight in the face, the suffering, the random meaninglessness, and even death itself. By bravely embracing the heavy suffering that is just an essential part of the human condition, you actually unlock deep creativity, resilience, and genuine optimism. It's not about hiding indoors and avoiding the storm. It's about walking out and building a windmill right in the middle of it. Building heavily on Frankl's genius historical insights, a modern researcher named Paul Wong developed a fundamental, structural framework for what we call existential positive psychology, or EPP. Let's take a look at the core structure here. It specifically addresses the dialectic, which is basically a fancy academic word for the ongoing dynamic conversation between the light and dark sides of life. It is represented perfectly by that ancient yin and yang structure. The entire physical and psychological universe is built on these dialectical principles. You literally cannot have one side without the other side existing to define it. Wang's modern model provides this incredibly unique, highly grounded perspective on human well-being by combining our absolute highest, most euphoric highs with our devastatingly lowest lows. And listen, this isn't just some abstract, boring academic philosophy meant for textbooks. It is a highly practical, actionable agenda for navigating your everyday hustle, your relationships, and your anxiety. The entire framework is broken down into 4 fundamental tenets. Let's unpack them right now, because no cap, understanding this is the actual secret sauce to winning at life without completely losing your mind in the process.
All right, the very first core tenet of EPP is polarity. This essentially means that every single element in nature and every single aspect of human life has 2 apparently opposite but deeply and permanently interrelated aspects. Positive experiences are innately biologically tied to negative ones. Think about it. You literally cannot experience true, deep, overwhelming joy without having first known the sharp sting of sadness and grief. Genuine, rock-solid strength regularly comes straight out of moments of intense weakness, failure, and vulnerability. EPP says you have to actively stop avoiding the bad stuff. You have to stop running away from the messy duality of your existence. It's not a glitch in the matrix when you feel pain. It is a pivotal, highly intended feature of life that you simply have to learn to navigate. You have to embrace the polarity because fighting it is a massive waste of your emotional energy. Moving on, the second tenet is self-transcendence. Now, this is about actively moving beyond that simple black and white duality of good versus bad. It's about establishing a broader, more harmonious balance rather than hyper-emphasizing one side of your life over the other. To do this, you have to accept your own limitations honestly and brutally. You gotta realize that you are human, you have an Achilles heel, you have blind spots, and guess what? That is completely okay. The great philosopher Aristotle once dropped a massive truth bomb. He said, "A man cannot become a true hero until he can clearly see the root of his own downfall." So self-transcendence is about admitting your flaws without shame, expanding your consciousness to a wider, more communal perspective, and chasing deeply meaningful goals anyway. It's about realizing the world isn't just about me anymore, it's about contributing to the common good of humanity. You literally level up your own personal life by looking past yourself and serving something bigger. Next up is the third tenet, which is balance and harmony. This is the stage where we actually put the previous concepts into motion in our daily routines. Genuine, lasting well-being is not a non-stop 24/7 party of good vibes. It's just not. It's not a persistent, desperate quest to feel pure happiness every single waking second. Instead, it's an active, highly intentional engagement with a full, rich, complex range of human emotions. You have to let yourself feel the comfortable ones, like joy and excitement, but you also have to sit with the deeply uncomfortable ones, like grief, anger, and frustration. You don't suppress them, you don't scroll on TikTok for 4 hours to numb them, and you don't drug the opposing feelings away. Instead, you attain a dynamic, flowing harmony between all aspects of your being. You have to be highly intentional with your mental energy. You have to actively navigate your work stress, your personal life drama, and your swirling internal emotions. It's all about finding that golden mean, carving out a peaceful middle way straight through the chaos of modern life. And that leads us perfectly to the final and arguably the most crucial tenet, true positivity. Let me be clear, this is totally fundamentally different from simple, naive, toxic optimism. True positivity looks dead-on at adversity, trauma, and pain without blinking or looking away. It fully and openly acknowledges the harsh reality of suffering that exists in the world. But, and this is the absolute vital key to everything, it also boldly acknowledges your own massive capacity for resilience, personal agency, and creative problem solving. It's about actively fighting to preserve your positive facets during periods of severe hardship. It's about continuously nurturing your inner power and ruthlessly maintaining hope when everything around you is going wrong. It's fully accepting that radical, beautiful transformation is entirely possible despite facing severe life-altering challenges. The brilliant philosopher Albert Camus noted that the ultimate paradox of the human experience is that negation eventually becomes affirmation. True positivity is knowing that the world is incredibly rough and unfair, but waking up and deciding to be completely unstoppable anyway.
Part 3. Mastering Strategic Optimism. Let's bring all this theory into the real world.
So, how do we bring all of this profound, deep psychology together and actually apply this balanced approach to our daily hustle, our new startups, and our absolute biggest life goals? Because listen, a lot of modern internet culture glorifies being entirely delusional without ever applying any actual reality testing.
They honestly, genuinely think manifestation without putting in the physical work is enough to make you a millionaire. Spoiler alert, bro, it's not. You absolutely cannot substitute unearned fake confidence for actual, hard-earned competence. Strategic optimism is the healthiest, most effective form of delusion you can possibly have. As you can see on our final blueprint here, generating real-world success requires a very specific four-part combo. Step 1 is ambitious belief. You need enough raw, slightly crazy optimism to even attempt difficult things in the first place. Step 2 is repeated experimentation. You have to actually get in the arena and put in the reps. Fail, learn, repeat. Step 3 is adaptability. When harsh reality punches you in the mouth and pushes back, you don't ignore it. You pivot hard and adjust your strategy. And step 4 is sustained work. You cannot magically manifest true expertise without grinding through years of boring practice. You have to combine bold, unshakable conviction with the honest, sometimes painful confrontation of reality. That is exactly what Stan Lee did with Spider-Man. He had the wild, supposedly delusional belief, but he executed it perfectly with sustained, grueling work. The goal here is not to abandon logic and just float away on vibes. The goal is to believe strongly enough to begin the race long before the absolute certainty of winning ever arrives.
As we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this incredibly profound, heavy thought from the philosopher Albert Camus. There is no joy of life without despair. Existential positive psychology teaches us that the dark side of life, the pain and the struggle, actually serves the vital, adaptive functions of survival and human flourishing. Your mind's evolutionary tendency to deceive itself might be a dangerous trap if left completely unchecked, but when you manage it carefully with strategic optimism, it transforms into pure, world-changing vision. You have to bravely embrace the negatives to unlock the true, lasting positives in your life. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what specific delusion are you currently holding on to today? And is it actively building your future or secretly destroying it? Think about it deeply. Thank you so much for tuning into this explainer on Inner Drive. If this explainer shifted your perspective even a little bit, or if you learned something new about how your brain works, hit that subscribe button and join the Inner Drive community. Keep questioning your reality. The scene Katra Chow out there, so keep grinding, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.